Howdy y'all, today we're making a hollow glass donut. So I wanted to play around today and try something with the pool water tech tubing that we made in our fuming video. I decided I'm going to add some silver striking frit to the inside and see what kind of visuals we can get with it. So we're zooming in here because I want to show you just tearing away that glass, making it very thin, doing a hot push and pull into the flame, pops open that hole, and look how beautiful it is. Remember, you want to get that wall weight very thin before you do your push and pull, but when you do, put it into the flame and it'll just tear right open. I went ahead and took my reamer and opened up the hole, and now we're going to be using Silver Strike 5, I believe is the name of it. It might be Silver Strike something else, but anywho, it's silver striking frit. I wanted to see what we can do with a fuming frit on the inside of a fumed tube. How I will be coating the interior of my tube with frit is that I took 3 big spoonfuls of frit. This is very fine frit. And now I'm heating up the tubing incrementally, inch by inch, or maybe even a little bit less. I'm allowing the tube to heat up. I'm allowing the frit to tack to the interior of the wall. Not fully melted in by any means, but I'm just letting it stick. I'm letting it find a place to settle before I go back in and reheat the whole tube and then melt the entirety of the frit to the interior of the wall. Now you can see it's kind of fumed a little bit, so it looks a little bit denser even though it's really not. It's the same amount of frit in there. And now what I'm going to be going in is I'm going to be heating up each single section, and then I'm going to be blowing it out onto the marver, because what I'm doing is I'm heating from the outside to the inside, melting the frit on the inside with the radiant heat that is penetrating through the wall, and then blowing it out and making sure that everything is nice and cohesive and even from the exterior wall to the interior wall. Because when I start to blow this out in a minute, I want to make sure that my wall weight is even so we don't have any weird stress anywhere from any type of thermal inconsistency. So what I'm doing here is condensing the tubing. So I'm taking the length of the tubing, melting it back and down so that I can create a larger width. So we're essentially shrinking the tube from length to width. Mind you, what we're doing here is we're not creating a very thick ball or a thick wall weight. What we're doing is we're just condensing down and then blowing out. So the wall weight will remain relatively the same. It's going to be thicker for just a moment here before we switch the axis in which we're working with this tubing. Because I want the side profile of our tubing to now be the face of our donut, what I'm going to do is pop a hole in the side of the tubing and attach a handle so that now we're working with a different section of pattern as the face of our project. So here what I'm doing is just showing you how I'm blowing a very thin bubble back and forth, letting it get paper thin before I pop it open. And the reason for that is it's going to be really easy to add a handle, and it's also going to give me just a little bit of what you'd consider like a shoulder, like a volcano like shape to it, so that it's easy to attach and then pull off. I'm really sorry for the visuals of me chewing. I ate a handful of goldfish and they were really dry and I didn't have anything to drink, so my mouth was full of goldfish. So here I've made my handle. I flared it open to the size of the hole on the piece of prep. I'm heating both sides, and I'm going to do a press and pull technique when I attach them. Now, is this going to be the most beautiful, perfect, centered, wonderful handle? No, because we're actually going to be taking it off this handle relatively soon. It just needs to be centered. It doesn't need to be pretty. So now that I've got it centered, I'm going to pull off the previous handle that we were using from the original orientation of the fumed tubing. So now we need to rake off a little bit of clear that was left behind on this prep piece. I've got us zoomed in real close because I want you to see the direction that I am pulling with my punchy, so around and away. And I'm letting it get kind of cold because I want you guys to see how I'm pulling that mass of glass away. I'm not rotating it towards where I'm trying to pull it away from. I'm literally pulling it away, around, and down. And I'm just going to demonstrate that one more time. And like I said, it gets a little cold, but I just wanted you to see the motion very clearly about how I'm pulling away this glass. So now that I have what I want removed from the piece of prep, we are going to go in and we're going to take some of those heavier sections on the left and right side, or on the east and west side of our prep, and we're going to begin to pull those down and around. As you can see, it's a little wider than it is long, but we need to add length back into the piece of tubing, because what we're then going to do is once again shrink it back so that we can then make a disc out of it. So to make a disc out of it at this point, we could, but it would be tricky because the face would want to move much more quickly than the sides. So what I'm doing is I'm heating up, I'm letting gravity do its natural thing. I'm letting it fall towards the thinnest section by angling it downwards and having it all nice and evenly hot, so that we then once again have a beautiful little piece of prep tubing that looks like a tube instead of a ball. I closed up on that because I want you to see that when I'm heating it up and I'm letting it fall, I'm taking it back into the marver and I'm using just my observation to make sure that the wall weight is staying as even as possible by holding the exterior of the wall while blowing breath into it to then create a nice even distribution of glass on the interior. So now that we've done all that lovely work to make sure that all the wall weight is nice and even, we're going to then condense it slightly and then start to blow it out into a disc. So what I'm doing is elbow up, letting it fall down to the ground, and then elbow down, letting it rise to the ceiling. So what this technique is doing is allowing the ball to become rounder, expanding farther out when it's going down, and then when it's up towards the ceiling, the weight of that wall is pulling down against itself and it's becoming wider. It's not becoming thinner, it's just naturally becoming wider. Sorry everybody, my phone overheated while I was recording, but essentially all I did was I took that puck shape we were already making, heated up the front, the middle, and the back. I set it into the L shape of my marver, and then I took my hand paddle, my graphite hand paddle, and I pressed it, and it just made a puck shape. Here I'm blowing a nice thin bubble because we are once again going to change the axis. Once again, because I would like the face of my donut to be the face that we've created with this puck. So here I'm being a little bit more diligent about how I'm going to attach this handle. I want to make sure everything's nice and hot. We're going to do a nice push and pull, a slight wiggle. We're going to make sure it's nice and clean and that it's nice and straight, looking at it from all angles, making sure it's nice and cozy. And then what we're going to do is we're going to detach the handle from the back side, but we are going to be mindful. Remove the shoulder section of the tubing that we used on our handle, because that portion of color is what's going to fill in on the back side to create a illusion of seamlessness. We're trying to disguise the fact that there was once a hole in that portion of the tubing by filling it in with color that would naturally already be surrounding it. So this portion of the video is actually going to go real quick, so just bear with me and watch it as many times as you need. So what I'm doing is heating up the section of the donut that I want to start pressing to the interior of the puck. I'm taking my tungsten, I'm pressing in, and then I am wiggling around. And what that wiggling around does essentially creates a cone shape, and that cone shape is going to give me the space to then put larger tools in once I have begun the process of opening it. So now I will repeat that on the back side. I'm going to heat up the section that I want to start pressing towards the center, and I'm going to wiggle around. The goal essentially is to touch both of these poked points in the center of the glass, and it'll look like a double-sided funnel. See, as you can see here, a double-sided funnel in the center. And what we're going to do from there is heat up a section of it. We're going to heat up our tungsten. We're going to allow the heat of that tungsten to quite literally move the glass out and around and away from the tungsten itself. So that way it literally can push through the glass because it's hot enough. The glass is hot enough and the tool is hot enough. And now we have full penetration on both sides. And from that side, I'm going to then put my tungsten in. I'm going to wiggle it around again. I'm going to start opening up that hole that we've just created, because what I'm going to do then is take my reverse tweezers and we're going to start opening up that hole. And as you can see here, I accidentally overheat that hole. So I have to take the tungsten, reopen it, then take my reverse tweezers and begin to increase the diameter of the hole. Once it's to the point where my reamer can get through, I'm going to heat up both sides and going back and forth and just gradually increase the diameter of our donut hole. As you can see, I have my blow hose in my mouth, but I'm actually not using it currently. It's just kind of a habit that I keep it in my mouth all the time. But we're going to wait to blow into it until we have gotten the diameter to the point where we actually then want to start moving that heavier wall weight from the center of that donut, because we're pushing it all out, right? But it's gathering in when we're doing that. And after we have the size that we want, I will then start to heat the interior of that hole, the donut hole, and then start gradually allowing that wall weight to fall out and around the face and the back of that donut just by applying heat and air pressure, so that there's not an excess of glass gathered in the center that will eventually or could cause a problem for you in the long run because of thermal shock from one portion of the glass being far thicker than the other. And that's pretty much it. That's how to make a donut in glass. It moves pretty quickly when you're actually pressing through and then expanding out. And I know it was like a lot leading up to that very short demonstration towards the end, but I hope you enjoyed and that this was helpful. Thanks again. See you next time.